The words hit me like ice water as I stood in the hallway of Westfield Academy, my 7-year-old daughter Lily's backpack in one hand, her forgotten lunchbox in the other. Mrs. Henderson, Lily's second-grade teacher, had pulled me aside after dismissal. Her usually warm smile replaced by something I'd never seen before. Fear. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, like this video, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. What do you mean she isn't safe? I whispered back, glancing around the empty hallway. The prestigious private school's marble floors gleamed under the afternoon light streaming through tall windows, everything appearing as perfect as always. Mrs. Henderson's hands trembled slightly as she clutched her lesson planner. I can't say more here, but please check everything. Watch the recordings from your home security system. Something isn't right. Before I could ask another question, she hurried back into her classroom, leaving me standing alone in the corridor with a racing heart and 1,000 questions. My name is Sarah Chen Martinez, and until that moment, I thought I had everything under control. As the founder of Secure Home Solutions, I'd built a multi-million-dollar business designing and installing advanced security systems for high-end residential clients. My expertise was protection, surveillance, and safety. Yet somehow, I'd missed something crucial happening right under my nose. The drive home to our gated community in North Hills felt endless. Lily chattered about her day from the back seat, oblivious to the storm brewing in my mind. She talked about art class and recess, her voice a comforting soundtrack that contrasted sharply with the anxiety clawing at my chest. "Mommy, why did Mrs. Henderson look scared today?" Lily asked as we pulled into our driveway. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" She kept looking at the door during reading time, and she walked me to the bathroom even though I didn't ask. A chill ran down my spine. Mrs. Henderson was experienced, calm, professional. For her to be visibly afraid meant something serious was happening. Our house sat on 2 acres of perfectly manicured lawn, a modern masterpiece of glass and steel that I'd designed with security as the primary consideration. Every angle was calculated, every sightline clear. 32 4K cameras monitored every inch of the property, inside and out. Motion sensors, infrared detection, facial recognition software. My home was a fortress disguised as architectural elegance. "Go wash your hands and start your homework," I told Lily as we entered through the main foyer. "I'll be in my office." My home office doubled as a security command center, with 6 large monitors displaying feeds from cameras throughout the house and grounds. I'd installed this system 3 years ago when my business took off and my ex-husband David started making threats about custody. He'd said I was paranoid. Turns out, paranoia was just preparation by another name. I pulled up the timeline from the past 2 weeks, starting with yesterday's footage. Everything looked normal. Lily getting ready for school, our housekeeper Maria arriving at 9 a.m., the APA landscaping crew working on the back gardens on Tuesday. But Mrs. Henderson's warning echoed in my mind. Check everything. Watch the recordings. Then I saw it. Thursday morning, 7:23 a.m. A white panel van parked across the street from our house, partially hidden behind the Kowalski's massive oak tree. The vehicle wasn't there when Lily and I left for school at 7:45, but I rewound the footage and watched it arrive at exactly 7:20 a.m., 3 minutes after our garage door had opened for my morning routine of moving my car out to warm up. Someone was watching our schedule. I pulled up the facial recognition software and zoomed in on the van's driver. The system immediately flagged an unknown individual. Male, approximately 40-45 years old, wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses. But there was something about the way he held his shoulders, the angle of his jaw that seemed familiar. My blood turned to ice as I enhanced the image further. It was Marcus Webb, my ex-husband David's private investigator, the same man who'd been harassing my clients 2 years ago. trying to build a case that my work schedule made me an unfit mother. David had been forced to call him off after my lawyer threatened legal action, but apparently Marcus was back. I scrolled through more footage, my fingers flying across the keyboard. Wednesday, same van, same time. Tuesday, there it was again. Going back further, I found similar patterns stretching back nearly 2 weeks. Always between 7:20 and 7:30 a.m., always positioned to watch our morning routine. But why would Mrs. Henderson know about this? How could a second-grade teacher possibly be aware of surveillance I'd only just discovered? The answer came at 3:47 p.m. on Wednesday's footage. I watched Lily's classroom window from our exterior cameras. Our property line ran adjacent to the school's playground, something that had been a selling point when we bought the house. Through the telephoto lens I'd installed for perimeter monitoring, I could see into the classroom during outdoor activities. There, standing at the window during what should have been indoor reading time, was Mrs. Henderson. She was pointing something out to another teacher, both of them looking directly toward the white van parked across from my house. They weren't just watching the van, they were documenting it. I grabbed my phone and called Mrs. Henderson's number, which the school had provided, for parent-teacher communications. It went straight to voicemail. "Mrs. Henderson, this is Sarah Martinez, Lily's mom. I need to speak with you immediately about what you told me today. I found what you were talking about. Please call me back." As I hung up, another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Last Friday, Lily had come home with a bruise on her arm. When I asked about it, she said she'd fallen during recess. But when I checked the playground footage from my perimeter cameras, I couldn't find any evidence of her falling. In fact, I couldn't see her during recess at all, which was odd because she always played on the equipment visible from my cameras. I pulled up Friday's school footage again, this time looking more carefully. At 11:15 a.m., I watched Lily's class line up to go outside. But instead of heading to their usual playground area, they walked toward the far side of the building, the side I couldn't monitor from my house. Why would they change their routine? And why wouldn't Mrs. Henderson mention it during our parent-teacher conference the following week? My security expertise was finally kicking in, cutting through the maternal panic. This wasn't random. Someone was deliberately disrupting normal patterns, creating blind spots, testing response times. But who? And why? I opened my laptop and accessed the school's security system. As the parent of a student and a vendor who'd consulted on their camera placement 2 years ago, I still had administrative access. A detail the school had apparently forgotten to revoke. What I found made my hands shake. Friday's school footage showed something that made me question everything I thought I knew about my daughter's safety. At 11:47 a.m., while Lily's class was supposed to be at recess, she was walking down a hallway with a man I didn't recognize. He was wearing a maintenance uniform, but something about the interaction looked wrong. Lily appeared uncomfortable, looking back toward where her class should be. I enhanced the image and ran it through my facial recognition database, a comprehensive system I'd built using law enforcement contacts and private security networks. The result made me grab the edge of my desk to steady myself. The man was James Morrison, a convicted felon with a history of child endangerment charges. His most recent arrest had been 18 months ago for attempting to abduct a child from a different private school across town. He'd been released on probation 6 months ago, and somehow he was walking freely through Westfield Academy with my daughter. I immediately called the school's main office. "This is Sarah Martinez, Lily's mother. I need to speak with Principal Davidson immediately." "I'm sorry, Mrs. Martinez, but Principal Davidson left early today for a family emergency. Can I take a message? This is about school security. Who's in charge when she's not there?" "That would be Assistant Principal Rivers, but he's in a meeting with the board members. Can this wait until tomorrow?" "No, it cannot wait." My voice carried the authority I used when dealing with corporate security breaches. "Transfer me to him now, or I'm calling the police." A pause. "Please hold." 5 minutes passed before a man's voice came on the line. "Mrs. Martinez, this is Tom Rivers. I understand you have a security concern. I have footage of a convicted felon walking through your school with my daughter last Friday. I need to know how James Morrison gained access to your building and why no one noticed a strange man with a student. The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. Mrs. Martinez, I think there might be some confusion. We don't have anyone named James Morrison on our staff or vendor list. I didn't say he was on your staff. I said he's a convicted felon who was alone with my daughter in your hallway, and I have video proof. Another pause. Perhaps we should meet in person tomorrow morning to discuss this. Sometimes camera angles can be misleading. Mr. Rivers, I design security systems for a living. I know what I'm looking at. And what I'm looking at is a major security breach that put my child in danger. I could hear him shuffling papers. Of course, we take all security concerns seriously, but I'm sure there's an explanation. Our background check procedures are very thorough. Then explain how he got inside. I'll need to review our logs and get back to you. In the meantime, please be assured that student safety is our top priority. The call ended with promises to investigate and follow up, but I could hear the dismissive tone in Rivers' voice. He thought I was an overprotective parent seeing threats where none existed. He had no idea who he was dealing with. I spent the next hour compiling evidence. Screenshots of the white van's surveillance pattern, enhanced images of Marcus Webb, footage of the unknown man with Lily, and facial recognition results confirming his identity. I created a comprehensive security report that would make any law enforcement agency take notice. Then I did something I'd sworn I'd never do again. I called my ex-husband David. Sarah? This is unexpected. His voice carried that familiar tone of condescension that had driven me to divorce him 3 years ago. David, I need to know if you've hired Marcus Webb again. Marcus? No, why would I? Because he's been surveilling our house for 2 weeks, and something's happening at Lily's school that's connected to it. A pause. Sarah, you're being paranoid again. Just because you see a van on the street doesn't mean… David, listen to me very carefully. A convicted child predator had access to Lily at school last Friday. A teacher warned me that she's not safe there. And your private investigator has been watching our house every morning. These things are connected, and if you're involved in any way… Whoa, hold on. A what had access to Lily? For the first time in years, David sounded genuinely alarmed, rather than dismissive. A man named James Morrison, convicted of child endangerment, arrested for attempted abduction. He was walking with Lily through the school hallway while her class was supposed to be at recess. Jesus, Sarah, have you called the police? I'm calling you first because if this is some twisted custody investigation gone wrong, I need to know, before I involve law enforcement. I swear to you, I have no idea what you're talking about. I haven't hired Marcus in over a year, and I would never, ever put Lily in danger for any reason. Something in his voice convinced me he was telling the truth. David was many things: arrogant, controlling, dismissive, but he loved Lily fiercely. He would never knowingly expose her to danger. Then who hired Marcus? And how is this connected to what's happening at school? I don't know, but we need to figure it out. Can you send me what you found? As I compiled the evidence to send to David, my phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Stop digging or things will get worse for Lily. Some secrets are worth keeping. My blood turned to ice. Someone was monitoring my investigation. Someone knew I'd discovered the surveillance, accessed the school footage, and was putting pieces together. But they'd made a crucial mistake. They'd threatened my daughter. I screenshot the message and immediately forwarded it to David along with all the evidence I'd gathered. Then I did what any security expert would do when facing a credible threat. I activated every defensive protocol I'd ever designed. Within minutes, my house transformed into a fortress. All exterior cameras switched to high-definition recording mode. Motion sensors increased sensitivity, and the facial recognition system began scanning for any known threats in a 3-block radius. I activated the silent alarm that would alert my security company and 3 backup contacts if anything unusual was detected. Then I called the one person I trusted more than anyone, my business partner and former Navy intelligence officer, Marcus Rodriguez. Sarah? It's late for a business call. Marcus, I need you here now. Full tactical assessment. Someone's threatening Lily. The line went quiet. Marcus had been with me when I'd designed our security protocols. He knew what full tactical assessment meant. I'm 20 minutes out. Lock down everything and don't answer the door for anyone but me. As I waited for Marcus to arrive, I reviewed the evidence one more time, looking for patterns I might have missed. The surveillance had started exactly 2 weeks ago. The school security breach happened last Friday. Mrs. Henderson's warning came today. The threatening text arrived tonight. Someone was escalating a plan that had been weeks in the making. But why? What was so important about Lily that someone would risk this level of exposure? The answer came from an unexpected source. Lily herself. I found her in the kitchen, drawing at the breakfast bar while eating her after-school snack. Her artwork usually consisted of houses and flowers and stick-figure families. Today, she was drawing something completely different. What's that, sweetheart? It's the man who helped me last Friday when I got lost. My heart stopped. Got lost? During recess, I went to the bathroom, but I couldn't find my way back to the playground. The maintenance man helped me. He said he knew you from your work and that he was making sure I was safe. What did he look like? Lily held up her drawing. It was remarkably detailed for a 7-year-old's artwork, clearly showing a man in a maintenance uniform with distinctive features that matched the facial recognition results for James Morrison. Did he ask you any questions? He wanted to know about our house and if we had cameras. I told him you had the best security system in the whole world because that's your job. The pieces were finally coming together, but the picture they formed was terrifying. Someone had used a convicted felon to approach my daughter and gather intelligence about our home security system. The surveillance of our house wasn't random, it was reconnaissance for something bigger, and Mrs. Henderson knew about it, which meant other people at the school were involved. My phone rang. Marcus was at the front gate. Let me in. And Sarah? You've got company. 3 vehicles in a tactical formation 2 blocks out, heading this way. I buzzed him through the gate and watched on my monitors as his black SUV raced up the driveway. At the same time, the facial recognition system began lighting up with alerts. Unknown individuals were approaching from multiple directions. Whatever was happening, it was happening now. Lily, I called, keeping my voice calm despite the adrenaline flooding my system. Come with Mommy. We're going to play the special hiding game I taught you. The safe room I'd installed during construction was accessed through a hidden panel in my office closet. It contained communications equipment, emergency supplies, and an independent security system that could operate even if the main house systems were compromised. Mommy, what's wrong? Lily asked as I guided her toward my office. Nothing's wrong. Sweetheart, but remember what I always tell you about being prepared? It's better to be safe than sorry. That's right. And right now, we're going to be very safe. As we reached my office, I heard the front door open and Marcus's voice calling for me. But something was wrong. Marcus never entered without announcing, himself using our agreed-upon code phrase. I grabbed Lily and dove for the safe room just as multiple sets of footsteps echoed through the house. These weren't the careful, measured steps of my business partner. These were the heavy, purposeful strides of people who didn't care about being quiet. From inside the safe room, I could monitor every camera in the house through a secure feed. What I saw made me realize that everything I thought I knew about this situation was wrong. The men searching my house weren't random criminals or kidnappers. They were wearing tactical gear with law enforcement-style equipment. But their faces were covered, and they moved with the precision of a professional team. And leading them through my house was Assistant Principal Rivers from Westfield Academy. I watched in stunned silence as Rivers directed the team to specific Locations throughout my house. Locations that suggested intimate knowledge of my security system's design and capabilities. They knew exactly where to find my servers, my backup drives, my client files. This wasn't a random attack. It was a targeted operation designed to destroy my business and eliminate evidence of something much larger. But what had I discovered that was worth this level of risk? The answer was in my client files. Specifically, the security system I'd designed and installed 2 years ago for a private residence that had seemed like a routine job at the time. The client had been Thomas Hendricks, a wealthy businessman who wanted discreet security for his family compound. The installation had been complex, involving multiple buildings and extensive surveillance coverage. But there had been something odd about the job. Hendricks had insisted on specific camera blind spots and had been very particular about which footage would be stored and which would be automatically deleted. At the time, I'd assumed it was about privacy. Now I realized it was about something much darker, because Thomas Hendricks wasn't just any wealthy businessman. He was the majority investor in Westfield Academy, a member of the school board, and according to my research database, a person of interest in 3 separate investigations involving missing children from private schools. And somehow, Mrs. Henderson had discovered this connection. From my safe room, I watched the tactical team systematically destroying evidence while Rivers supervised. They weren't just looking for something. They were eliminating anything that could tie them to whatever operation was running at Westfield Academy. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They assumed my security system worked like everyone else's, with centralized storage that could be compromised or destroyed. They had no idea that everything they were doing was being transmitted in real time to an off-site server farm, encrypted and backed up through a system even the FBI couldn't crack. I pulled up my phone and sent a single text message to a contact I'd hoped never to use. Detective Lisa Park, a former client who now worked specialized crimes for the Metro Police Department. Emergency. Child trafficking operation at Westfield Academy. Sending evidence package now. They're in my house. Then I did something that would either save my daughter's life or destroy everything I'd built. I activated the dead man's switch. I'd installed in every client security system I'd ever designed. Every camera, every sensor, every piece of surveillance equipment I'd installed over the past 5 years began broadcasting everything they'd recorded to law enforcement agencies, news outlets, and social media platforms simultaneously, including 2 years of footage from Thomas Hendricks' compound that would expose exactly what had been happening to children who disappeared from prestigious private schools. The nuclear option wasn't just activated, it was detonating across every network in the city. And in my safe room, holding my terrified daughter, I waited to see whether the bomb I'd just triggered would save us or destroy us both. The first sign that my digital nuclear bomb was working came through the speakers in my safe room. Upstairs, I could hear Rivers shouting into his radio with increasing desperation. "Abort! Abort! The feeds are going live!" Through my monitors, I watched as his tactical team suddenly shifted from methodical searching to frantic destruction. They were no longer looking for evidence. They were trying to eliminate it before the world saw what they'd walked into. Too late. My phone buzzed with notifications cascading faster than I could read them. News outlets, police departments, FBI field offices. Everyone was receiving the data stream from hundreds of security systems across the city. 2 years of compromising footage from Thomas Hendricks' compound was now spreading across every platform imaginable. "Mommy, what's that noise?" Lily whispered from where she huddled against me in our reinforced shelter. "Just some people who made bad choices learning about consequences," I murmured, stroking her hair while keeping my eyes on the monitors. The tactical team was retreating, but Rivers remained in my office, frantically typing on his laptop. He was trying to trace the data transmission, probably hoping to contain the damage. What he didn't understand was that my system wasn't designed to be contained. It was designed to be unstoppable once activated. My phone rang. "Detective Park. Sarah, What the hell did you just unleash? Every screen in the precinct is showing footage of missing kids being transported through some kind of tunnel system. That's Hendrix's compound. I installed the security system 2 years ago. He insisted on specific camera placements that I thought were about privacy, but now I realize they were documenting everything for insurance purposes. Insurance? When you're running a trafficking operation with high-profile clients, you need leverage to keep everyone quiet. Hendrix was recording everything, the clients, the victims, the transactions. It's all there. Through my monitors, I could see police, vehicles approaching my street, their lights cutting through the darkness, but they weren't alone. 3 black SUVs that didn't belong to any law enforcement agency I recognized were racing to intercept them. Lisa, you need to know that Rivers from Westfield Academy is in my house right now with a tactical team. They're connected to this. And there are unknown vehicles moving to block police response. We're tracking your location. But Sarah, this is bigger than local PD can handle. The footage you released shows federal judges, state senators, people we can't just arrest without ironclad evidence. The evidence is streaming live to every major news outlet in the country. How much more ironclad do you need? It's not about proof. It's about survival. These people have resources we can't imagine. You've just declared war on some of the most powerful individuals in the state. Through my cameras, I watched Rivers suddenly freeze at my desk, then grab his radio. Again, we've got federal response incoming, multiple agencies. This is compromised beyond recovery. Then he did something that chilled my blood. He pulled out his sidearm and began moving methodically through my house, checking every room, every closet, every possible hiding place. He was hunting for Lily and me. Lisa, Rivers is armed and searching the house. How far out are your units? 2 minutes. But Sarah, if he's working with federal agencies, he's not working with legitimate federal agencies. The people approaching my street aren't official. Response. Check the database I'm transmitting. Hendrix client list includes people who could mobilize private military contractors. As if summoned by my words, the first SUV reached my driveway. Men in unmarked tactical gear poured out, moving with military precision toward my house. But they weren't coordinating with Rivers. They were surrounding the building like they intended to contain a threat. Rivers was expendable now. They were cleaning house. My secure phone, a separate device connected to encrypted networks that even sophisticated hackers couldn't penetrate, buzzed with an incoming call from a number I didn't recognize. Ms. Martinez, this is FBI Assistant Director James Walsh. I need you to listen very carefully. How did you get this number? We've been monitoring communications related to your data transmission. You've uncovered a network we've been investigating for 3 years, but you've also put yourself and your daughter in immediate danger from people who kill to protect their secrets. Through my monitors, I could see the unmarked tactical team had reached my front door. Rivers was trapped between them and whatever law enforcement was approaching from the street. Director Walsh, there's a compromised school administrator in my house with a weapon and private military contractors outside. My daughter and I are in a safe room, but the contractors aren't there for you. They're there to eliminate Rivers and anyone else who could testify about the network's operations. But that doesn't mean you're safe. We need to extract you before they decide loose ends include witnesses. Lily tugged at my shirt. Mommy, someone's at the secret door. My blood turned to ice. The safe room was accessed through a hidden panel that should be invisible unless someone knew exactly what to look for. The fact that someone had found it meant either my security had been completely compromised, or, Sarah, it's Marcus. I need you to open this door right now. Relief flooded through me, followed immediately by suspicion. How had Marcus found the safe room? How had he gotten past the tactical teams outside? Marcus, what's the code phrase? Sarah, there's no time for protocols. The building is about to become a war zone. Wrong answer. The real Marcus would never skip security protocols. especially in a crisis situation. Director Walsh, someone claiming, "To be my business partner is outside the safe room," but his responses aren't matching our security procedures. "Don't open that door. We have intelligence suggesting your partner was compromised weeks ago. The surveillance on your house wasn't just about gathering information. It was about recruiting inside assets." The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Marcus had access to all my security systems, all my client files, all my protocols. If he'd been turned, everything I'd built to protect my family had become a weapon against us. The knocking on the safe room door became more insistent. "Sarah, I can hear you in there. Open the door. There are people in the house who want to hurt Lily." That last part was probably true, but Marcus might be one of them. Through my monitors, I watched the situation outside evolve into something resembling urban warfare. Legitimate law enforcement had arrived. I could see Detective Park's unmarked car and several patrol units, but they were being blocked by the unmarked SUVs, and radio chatter suggested confusion about which agencies were actually involved. In the middle of this chaos, Rivers was barricaded in my kitchen, apparently trying to negotiate with someone, via radio. I couldn't hear the conversation, but his body language suggested desperation. "Director Walsh, I need extraction for me and my daughter, but I also need you to know that this network extends into my own business. My partner appears to be compromised. We're working on extraction, but the situation is complicated. Your data transmission has triggered responses from multiple agencies, and not all of them are legitimate. Some of the people claiming to be federal agents are actually private contractors hired to contain this situation permanently." The knocking on the safe room door stopped, replaced by a different sound, someone trying to override the electronic lock using sophisticated equipment. Marcus wasn't just compromised. He was actively working against us. I made a decision that went against every protective instinct I had. I was going to have to leave the safe room and get Lily out of the house through a route that Marcus didn't know about. "Lily, remember the games we used to play about being ninjas?" Her eyes went wide, but she nodded. "We're going to play the best ninja game ever, but you have to do exactly what Mommy says, and you can't make any noise at all." The safe room had a secondary exit that I'd installed as a failsafe, a small tunnel that led to a camouflaged opening in the garden shed 50 yards from the house. It was barely large enough for an adult to crawl through, designed for exactly this kind of emergency. I gathered emergency supplies, cash, backup identification, documents, a portable hard drive, containing additional evidence, and a secure satellite phone. Then I opened the secondary exit and began the most terrifying journey of my life. Crawling through a narrow tunnel with my 7-year-old daughter while armed men searched for us above was like something from a nightmare. But Lily was incredibly brave, following my whispered instructions without question as we made our way through the darkness. We emerged in the garden shed just as explosions echoed from the house. Through the shed's small window, I could see muzzle, flashes, and smoke. The situation had escalated into an active firefight. My secure phone buzzed with a text from Director Walsh. "Extraction Point Alpha, 5 minutes." Extraction Point Alpha was a code designation I'd never heard before, but given the circumstances, I had to trust that Walsh was legitimate. The alternative was staying hidden while armed men systematically searched the property. "Lily, we're going to run to the back fence, okay? Like we're racing to see who's fastest." What followed was the longest 30 seconds of my life. We sprinted across open ground while gunfire continued at the house, reached the fence line, and found a section that had been cut open from the other side. A woman in FBI tactical gear was waiting for us. "Agent Martinez, Agent Chen, I'm going to get you to safety." She led us through the hole in the fence to an armored vehicle waiting in the neighbor's backyard. As we reached the vehicle, I turned back to see my house, the fortress I'd designed to protect my family, burning against the night sky. "Is everyone?" I started to ask. "Rivers is dead. Your partner is in custody. 3 unidentified contractors are also dead. Detective Park is wounded but stable. We climbed into the vehicle as emergency response vehicles flooded the street. Fire trucks, ambulances, more law enforcement than I'd ever seen in one place. "Where are we going?" I asked as we drove away from the destruction. "Secure location for debriefing. Your data transmission has triggered the largest organized crime investigation in federal history. We're going to need your help to understand what you uncovered." Lily fell asleep against me during the drive, exhausted by the trauma and adrenaline. I held her close while processing the magnitude of what had happened. Mrs. Henderson's warning had saved our lives. But how had a second-grade teacher discovered a trafficking network that had eluded federal investigation? The answer came during my initial debriefing at a secure federal facility outside the city. Mrs. Henderson wasn't just a teacher. She was a former social worker who had recognized signs of abuse in several students over the past year. Students whose families were all connected to Westfield Academy's major donors. She had started documenting concerning patterns: children showing signs of trauma, unusual absences explained as family trips, behavior changes that suggested exposure to adult situations. When she tried to report her concerns through official channels, she was told to focus on teaching and leave child welfare to professionals. But Mrs. Henderson hadn't given up. She had started conducting her own investigation, following money, trails, and family connections. That's how she discovered that several missing children from other private schools had briefly attended Westfield Academy before disappearing entirely. "She contacted us 6 months ago," Director Walsh explained during my debriefing. "But her evidence was circumstantial. We needed more concrete proof to move against people with this level of political and financial protection." "So you used me," I realized. "You knew that if I investigated the surveillance on my house, I'd eventually trace it back to my client files." Walsh nodded grimly. "We needed someone with your technical expertise to uncover the digital evidence, but we also needed someone with personal stakes high enough to take the risks necessary to expose this network. You put my daughter in danger. Your daughter was already in danger. Every child at Westfield Academy was in danger. The network was escalating their operations, and Mrs. Henderson's investigation had made them paranoid. They were planning to relocate everything within 2 weeks." The scope of what I'd unknowingly helped expose became clear over the following hours. The Hendricks compound wasn't just a single operation. It was the hub of an international trafficking network that had been operating for over a decade. My security system had recorded evidence of transactions involving hundreds of children, payments to officials across multiple states, and coordination with similar operations in other countries. The client list read like a who's who of political and business leaders: federal judges, state senators, Fortune 500 CEOs, foreign diplomats, people with the power to make investigations disappear and witnesses vanish. "How many children?" I asked, dreading the answer. "We're still analyzing the footage, but preliminary estimates suggest over 300 victims over the past 5 years alone." The number hit me like a physical blow. 300 children whose lives had been destroyed, while I unknowingly provided the security infrastructure that documented their suffering. "There's something else," Walsh continued. "Your partner Marcus didn't just provide access to your systems. He was actively recruiting clients for the network. Several of your security installations were specifically chosen to provide surveillance for trafficking operations." That revelation shattered something inside me. Marcus had been my friend, my business partner, someone I'd trusted with my life and my daughter's safety. The betrayal felt even deeper than my ex-husband's infidelity. "How long?" "We believe he was recruited about 18 months ago. Financial pressure from gambling debts made him vulnerable to compromise." 18 months. That meant every security consultation, every client meeting, every system design had been potentially compromised for over a year. But there was one piece of good news in the devastation. The dead man's switch had worked perfectly. The evidence was now in the hands of law enforcement agencies across multiple countries. News organizations were broadcasting the story worldwide, and the network's operations had been completely exposed. What happens now? I asked. Now we build the cases that will put these people away for life. And you and Lily will need to disappear for a while until it's safe to return to normal life. Disappearing meant witness protection, new identities, starting over in a place where Thomas Hendricks' associates couldn't find us. It meant leaving behind everything I'd built, everyone I'd known, the entire life I'd created for my daughter. But it also meant that 300 children would get justice, and that no other parent would have to hear a teacher whisper, "Your daughter isn't safe here." 2 weeks later, I sat in a small apartment in a city I'd never seen before, watching news coverage of the arrests that continued to make headlines around the world. Lily was adapting to her new school with remarkable resilience, making friends and slowly returning to the happy child she'd been before our world exploded. Mrs. Henderson had also been relocated for her protection, but not before she received recognition from multiple child advocacy organizations for her courage in exposing the network. The last thing she'd told me before we were separated was that she'd never regretted whispering those warning words in the school hallway. My phone, a new secure device issued by the Marshal's Service, buzzed with a message from Director Walsh. Final arrest was made this morning. Thomas Hendricks was taken into custody in Switzerland. The network is completely dismantled. Your evidence made the difference. I showed Lily the message, translated into terms a 7-year-old could understand. Remember the bad people who were trying to hurt kids? They've all been caught now. We helped stop them. She looked up at me with those serious eyes that had seen. Too much for someone so young. Are we heroes, Mommy? No, sweetheart. Mrs. Henderson is the hero. She's the one who saved you. We just had the tools to help her save everyone else. That night, after Lily fell asleep in her new bed in our new home, I sat at the window looking out at a city I was learning to call home. My old life was gone. My business, my house, most of my relationships. But my daughter was safe, and somewhere out there, 300 other children were getting the help they needed to heal. The security expert in me knew that new threats would emerge, new networks would form, new predators would find ways to exploit the vulnerable. But they would face a world that was more aware, more vigilant, more willing to listen when teachers whisper warnings in school hallways. Because sometimes the most important security system isn't made of cameras and sensors and digital surveillance. Sometimes it's made of ordinary people who refuse to look away when something isn't right, who risk everything to protect children they've never met, who understand that true security comes from communities that care for their most vulnerable members. Mrs. Henderson had taught me that lesson in 4 simple words that changed everything. Your daughter isn't safe here. And in response, we had made sure that no parent would ever have to hear those words again. 6 months into our new life in Portland, Oregon, I thought we were finally safe. Lily had settled into Roosevelt Elementary, made friends with a girl named Emma, who lived next door, and stopped waking up from nightmares about men in tactical gear. I'd started freelance consulting work under my new identity, Sarah Chen, helping small businesses with basic security needs. Nothing glamorous, but honest work that let me sleep at night. That illusion of safety shattered on a Tuesday morning, when Lily's new teacher, Ms. Rodriguez, asked to speak with me after school. Mrs. Chen, I need to discuss something concerning about Lily's behavior yesterday. My blood went cold. Not again. Please, not again. What kind of behavior? Ms. Rodriguez pulled out a drawing from Lily's art folder. She drew this during creative time. When I asked her about it, she said it was a picture of her old school. But Sarah, this isn't a normal school drawing. The artwork showed a building with children, walking into one entrance and different children walking out another exit. Underground tunnels connected the building to houses, and standing watch over everything was a figure that looked remarkably like Thomas Hendricks. She also asked me very specific questions about our school's security cameras and whether we have basement access. Questions that seem unusual for a 7-year-old. I stared at the drawing, my security expert mind automatically analyzing the details. Lily had drawn architectural elements she couldn't possibly know unless she'd seen them firsthand. But according to all the evidence we'd gathered, she'd never been to the Hendricks compound. Ms. Rodriguez, has anyone new started working at the school recently? Maintenance staff, substitute teachers, volunteers? Why do you ask? Please, just answer the question. She frowned, clearly uncomfortable with my intensity. We did have a new guidance counselor start last week, Dr. Brennan. He's been meeting with some of our students who transferred from other schools, including Lily. My hands started shaking. What kind of meetings? Standard adjustment counseling, helping kids process changes in their lives. Dr. Brennan came highly recommended from the district office. He has experience working with children who've experienced trauma. I need to see his credentials. Now. Mrs. Chen, I understand you're protective, but Ms. Rodriguez, I need you to call the principal immediately and have Dr. Brennan's background. Check verified through official channels. Don't use the district office. Call the state licensing board directly. Something in my voice must have convinced her that this wasn't typical parental paranoia. 20 minutes later, we were sitting in Principal Walker's office while she made the call to the state licensing board. I see. No, there's no mistake. The name is Brennan. Dr. Michael Brennan. The color drained from Principal Walker's face as she hung up the phone. There is no Dr. Michael Brennan licensed as a guidance counselor in this state. The man who's been meeting with our students has fraudulent credentials. My worst fears were confirmed. The network hadn't been completely dismantled. Someone had tracked us down and was using the same tactics that had been used at Westfield Academy. I pulled out my secure phone and called Director Walsh. Sarah? You're supposed to contact me only in emergencies. This is an emergency. They found us. There's a fake counselor at Lily's school asking her about security and talking to her about her experiences. She's drawing pictures that suggest she knows details about the Hendricks compound that she shouldn't know. A long pause. That's impossible. The entire network was arrested. Hendricks is in federal custody. Then someone else is continuing their work. Walsh, Lily drew architectural details of underground tunnels connecting schools to houses. She's never seen those details before, which means someone is showing them to her. I could hear him typing rapidly in the background. I'm sending a team to your location. In the meantime, get Lily out of that school immediately and go to Safe House Protocol 7. Safe House Protocol 7 meant abandoning everything and moving to an emergency location within 2 hours. It meant our carefully constructed new life was over before it had really begun. Principal Walker, I need you to secure your building immediately. Lock all entrances, account for every staff member, and don't let Dr. Brennan leave if he's still on the premises. Mrs. Chen, what exactly is going on here? Before I could answer, the school's intercom crackled to life. Attention staff and students. We are implementing lockdown procedures immediately. This is not a drill. Teachers should secure their classrooms and await further instructions. Through the principal's office window, I could see federal vehicles racing into the school parking lot. But I could also see something else that made my blood freeze. A white panel van parked across the street, identical to the one Marcus Webb had used to surveil our house in Boston. Walsh, they're here. Same surveillance pattern as before. White, panel van, positioned for observation and escape routes. Stay exactly where you are. My team is 60 seconds out, but 60 seconds was too long. Through the office window, I watched as Dr. Brennan emerged from the school building, walking calmly toward the parking lot as if the lockdown didn't apply to him. He wasn't running or showing any signs of panic. He was extracting himself with professional efficiency. I made a decision that went against every protocol Walsh had given me. I left the principal's office and followed him. Mrs. Chen, where are you going? Principal Walker called after me. I didn't answer. I was already moving through the hallway, using skills I'd learned during my business consulting work to remain unseen while maintaining visual contact with my target. Dr. Brennan didn't head for the parking lot where his supposed vehicle would be registered with the school. Instead, he walked directly toward the white panel van across the street. As he approached, the van's side door opened, revealing sophisticated communications equipment and multiple computer monitors. This wasn't just surveillance. It was a mobile command center. I pulled out my phone and started recording as Dr. Brennan climbed into the van. Through the open door, I could see at least 2 other occupants, both wearing headsets and monitoring what appeared to be live feeds from multiple locations. They weren't just watching Roosevelt Elementary. They were coordinating surveillance of multiple schools simultaneously. My secure phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stop recording or your daughter will disappear before federal agents can reach her." I looked around frantically but couldn't see anyone watching me. Then I realized the truth. They had access to the school's security cameras. They were watching me through the same systems that were supposed to protect the students. But they'd made a critical error. They assumed I would react with fear rather than fury. I kept recording and started walking directly toward the van. The side door slammed shut, and the van began moving, but not before my camera captured something crucial: a partial license plate, and a clear view of sophisticated equipment that included facial recognition monitors displaying photos of children from multiple schools. As the van disappeared around the corner, federal vehicles converged on the school from 3 directions. Director Walsh himself climbed out of the lead SUV, moving with the urgency of someone who understood exactly how close we'd come to losing everything. "Sarah, where's Lily?" "Still in lockdown in her classroom." "But Walsh, this is bigger than we thought. They're not just targeting us, they're surveilling multiple schools simultaneously." I showed him the recording I'd made. His expression grew increasingly grim as he watched the footage. "Jesus Christ, that's not amateur hour equipment. That's military-grade surveillance and coordination technology. Which means this network has resources we never imagined. The people we arrested were middle management. The real operators are still out there." Over the next several hours, as federal agents processed the scene and interviewed school staff, the scope of the threat became clear. Dr. Brennan had been at Roosevelt Elementary for 1 week, but he'd also worked at 2 other schools in the Portland area over the past month. Always with perfect credentials that fooled initial background checks, always focusing on children who had transferred from other districts. He wasn't recruiting new victims, Agent Martinez explained during the briefing. He was identifying children who might have information about previous operations. Children like Lily who had been exposed to parts of the network and could potentially testify about what they'd seen. They're eliminating witnesses, I realized. Worse, they're identifying which children have memories that could be dangerous, then either relocating them or ensuring their testimony would be discredited. The methodology was sophisticated and terrifying. Children would be approached by trusted authority figures who would use therapeutic techniques to extract information about their experiences. Those whose memories posed threats to remaining network operations would be marked for intervention. Intervention? I asked, though I dreaded the answer. Sometimes relocation to places where they couldn't be found by law enforcement. Sometimes psychological manipulation to make their testimonies unreliable. And sometimes, he didn't need to finish. Sometimes children who knew too much simply disappeared. How many other schools? We're tracking at least 12 facilities across 4 states where similar fake counselors have appeared in the past 6 months, all targeting children who had connections to the original network. That night, in a new safe house while Lily slept under federal protection, I faced a choice that would define the rest of our lives. Walsh presented 2 options: deeper witness protection with completely new identities in a location so remote that we'd essentially disappear from the world, or active cooperation in a larger operation designed to expose and eliminate the remaining network. The first option guarantees your safety, but means living in isolation indefinitely. These people have demonstrated they can find anyone, anywhere. You'd be looking over your shoulder forever. And the second option? We use you as bait. You return to consulting work, but this time we control the environment. We let them find You, but on our terms, with our protection, as part of a coordinated effort to identify and capture the remaining operators. You want to use my daughter as bait. I want to give you the chance to end this permanently. Lily will never be safe as long as these people are free. But if we can capture the real leadership, she can have a normal life. I looked at my sleeping daughter, remembering the brave little girl who had endured so much trauma, yet still trusted me to keep her safe. The choice wasn't really between safety and danger. It was between temporary security and permanent freedom. What would the operation look like? Over the next 3 hours, Walsh outlined a plan that was audacious in its scope. I would return to security consulting, but this time working exclusively with schools and child-focused organizations. My expertise and reputation would make me an attractive target for recruitment by the remaining network operators. They need people with your skills to rebuild their infrastructure. Eventually, they'll approach you directly. And when they do, we'll be watching. Every meeting, every conversation, every digital communication will be monitored and recorded. We'll build cases against everyone involved while keeping you and Lily protected. The operation would require us to live normal lives while knowing that we were constantly under surveillance from both federal agents and criminal networks. Lily would attend school, make friends, and participate in activities, all while federal. Marshals maintain discreet protection. How long? 6 months to 2 years, depending on how quickly they move against you. It was a terrifying prospect, but also empowering. Instead of hiding for the rest of our lives, we would be actively working to ensure no other family would face what we had endured. I made my decision. We'll do it, but I have conditions. Name them. Complete transparency about threats and protection. Measures. If Lily is ever in immediate danger, we extract immediately, regardless of the impact on the operation. And when this is over, we get to choose where we live and how we live. Agreed. 3 weeks later, we moved to Denver, Colorado, where I established Chen Security Consultancy, specializing in protection systems for schools and youth organizations. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was returning to the same work that had inadvertently exposed the original network, but this time with the intention of drawing out the remaining operators. The office space Walsh's team selected was perfect for surveillance and protection. Located in a building with multiple exit routes, surrounded by federal assets, and equipped with the most advanced monitoring technology available. Lily started at Jefferson Elementary, a school that had been selected specifically for its excellent security and the presence of undercover federal agents on staff. To her, we were simply starting over again in another new city. She didn't know that her teacher was a former FBI agent or that the playground supervisor had tactical training. For 2 months, nothing happened. I took on legitimate clients, designed real security systems, and slowly built a reputation in Denver's business community. Lily made friends, joined the school choir, and began to seem like a normal child again. Then I received a call that changed everything. Ms. Chen, this is Victoria Sterling from the National Education Security Foundation. We'd like to discuss a consulting opportunity with your firm. I'd never heard of the National Education Security Foundation, but a quick online search revealed an organization focused on protecting children in educational environments. Their website showed partnerships with prestigious private schools across the country and endorsements from prominent education officials. What kind of consulting opportunity? We're developing a comprehensive security protocol for high-value educational institutions. Your reputation for discretion and expertise makes you an ideal candidate for this project. The call lasted 30 minutes, during which Victoria Sterling demonstrated sophisticated knowledge of my background, my consulting methods, and my previous work. She also mentioned details about the Westfield Academy situation that weren't public knowledge. After I hung up, I immediately called Walsh. They made contact. National Education Security Foundation. Victoria Sterling. She knows things about Boston that weren't in the news reports. We've been expecting this. Sterling is a person of interest we've been tracking for months. Former CIA operative turned private contractor. If she's recruiting you personally, it means they're ready to move to the next phase of their operations, which is rebuilding their network with improved security and better operational protocols. They need someone with your expertise to design systems that can't be compromised the way Hendrix's operation was. The meeting with Victoria Sterling was scheduled for the following week at an upscale restaurant in downtown Denver. I would be wearing sophisticated recording equipment, surrounded by federal agents, and prepared for anything from a simple recruitment pitch to a kidnapping attempt. But as I prepared for what might be the most dangerous meeting of my life, I realized something had changed. I was no longer the terrified mother who had hidden in a safe room while her world collapsed. I was a woman with skills, knowledge, and resources, backed by federal law enforcement and motivated by the determination to protect not just my own daughter, but every child who might be threatened by these predators. Mrs. Henderson had whispered a warning that saved Lily's life. Now it was my turn to ensure that warning would never need to be whispered again. The network had made one critical miscalculation. They assumed that terrorizing me would make me weaker. Instead, it had made me absolutely ruthless in my determination to destroy them completely. Victoria Sterling had no idea what she was walking into, but she was about to find out that some people, when pushed beyond their limits, don't break. They fight back. The meeting with Victoria Sterling took place at the Capitol Grill, an upscale steakhouse where politicians and business executives conducted deals over wine and aged beef. I arrived 15 minutes early, taking a table that provided clear sightlines to all entrances while keeping my back to the wall, tactics I'd learned during my months of federal protection training. Victoria Sterling entered at exactly 7 p.m., and I understood immediately why she'd been successful at recruiting high-level assets. Tall and elegant in a charcoal business suit, she carried herself with the confidence of someone accustomed to being the most dangerous person in any room. Her smile was warm and professional as she approached my table, but her eyes were constantly scanning for threats and exits. "Ms. Chen, thank you for meeting with me. I hope this location is acceptable." "It's perfect," I replied, knowing that federal agents were positioned at 3 nearby tables and that every word we spoke was being recorded by equipment sophisticated, enough to filter out background noise. She ordered wine, a vintage that cost more than most people made in a week, and began what appeared to be a standard recruitment presentation. The National Education Security Foundation needed someone with my expertise to develop protection protocols for their client schools. The pay was exceptional. The work would be challenging, and the discretion requirements were absolute. Our clients include some of the most prestigious educational institutions in the country, she explained, sliding a tablet across the table. They serve children from families who require the highest levels of security and privacy. I scrolled through the list of schools, recognizing several names from Director Walsh's briefings. These weren't just elite private schools. They were institutions that had been identified as potential recruitment centers for trafficking networks. "What exactly are these families afraid of?" I asked, playing the role of an interested consultant. "The same things you experienced in Boston," Sterling replied, her voice carrying just enough sympathy to seem genuine. "Public exposure, media attention, legal complications that arise when people misunderstand legitimate business relationships." The phrase legitimate business relationships made my skin crawl, but I maintained my professional composure. "I'm afraid I don't understand the reference to Boston." Sterling's smile became more predatory. "Ms. Chen, we both know why you're really in Denver. Your previous work with certain clients resulted in significant complications for people who valued their privacy. We're offering you an opportunity to apply your expertise in a more controlled environment." This was the moment Walsh had prepared me for. Sterling was revealing that they knew about my involvement in exposing the Hendrix network, and they were offering me a chance to work for the other side. What kind of controlled environment? One where your technical skills would be properly appreciated and where your daughter's safety would be guaranteed. Children can be so vulnerable in today's world, especially when their parents make decisions that draw unwanted attention. The threat was subtle but unmistakable. Work with us, or Lily would be in danger. I leaned forward slightly, letting genuine anger show in my voice. Are you threatening my daughter? Quite the opposite. I'm offering to protect her. Our organization has resources that surpass even federal law enforcement. We can ensure that neither of you ever has to worry about unexpected visitors or mysterious counselors asking uncomfortable questions. She knew about Dr. Brennan, which meant she knew about the Portland operation, our relocation, and probably our current protection arrangements. What would you need? From me? Your expertise in designing security systems that can compartmentalize information. Systems that allow authorized personnel to access what they need while ensuring that sensitive data remains protected from outside scrutiny. Translation. Help them build trafficking operations that couldn't be exposed the way Hendrick's compound had been. I pretended to consider her offer while mentally cataloging every detail of her appearance, her mannerisms, and her implied threats. The recording equipment would capture the audio, but my observations would help federal analysts build a comprehensive profile. This is a significant decision, I said finally. I'd need to see more details about the scope of work and the specific security challenges your clients face. Sterling reached into her briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. These are preliminary assessments from 3 client locations. Each presents unique challenges that would benefit from your innovative approach to security design. I opened the folder and felt my blood turn to ice. The first document was a security assessment for a private boarding school in Vermont. But this wasn't a normal educational institution. The floor plans showed underground facilities, holding areas, and transportation tunnels that had nothing to do with education. The second document detailed a therapeutic retreat center in Montana that specialized in treating troubled youth from wealthy families. The facility included isolation chambers, medical facilities equipped for surgery, and helicopter landing pads for discreet transportation. The third was the most damning. A comprehensive security analysis for a private island compound in the Caribbean that housed what Sterling's organization euphemistically called specialized educational programs for high-value students. These weren't schools. They were processing centers for a trafficking network that made Hendrick's operation look small-scale. How many children? I asked, my voice barely steady. That's not the right question, Ms. Chen. The right question is how many children you can help us protect by ensuring their security arrangements are properly designed. I closed the folder and looked directly into Sterling's eyes. And if I refuse? Then you'll continue living under federal protection, moving from city to city every few months, watching your daughter grow up in constant fear. Eventually, our resources will exceed their protection capabilities, and you'll face the consequences of your previous decisions. The meeting continued for another hour, with Sterling providing more details about their operations and their expectations. By the time we parted ways, I had enough recorded evidence to destroy what remained of the network, if I could survive long enough to deliver it to Director Walsh. As I walked to my car, I noticed the subtle signs that our federal protection had been compromised. The agents who should have been providing overwatch were nowhere to be seen. The restaurant staff who had been briefed on my security requirements were behaving differently, and there were new faces in the parking lot, faces that belonged to people who moved with tactical precision. Sterling hadn't just been recruiting me. She had been testing federal protection protocols and demonstrating her organization's ability to neutralize law enforcement surveillance. I reached my car and found a note tucked under the windshield wiper. Drive to the address below. Come alone. Your daughter's safety depends on your cooperation. The address was for a warehouse in an industrial district 20 minutes away. Every instinct told me it was a trap, but the implicit threat to Lily left me no choice. I started the car and began driving, using voice commands to call Director Walsh on my secure phone. "Sarah, how did the meeting go?" "They compromised our protection. Sterling knew about the Portland operation, and there's a note directing me to a warehouse. Walsh, they have resources we didn't anticipate. This isn't just a trafficking network. It's a private intelligence operation with capabilities that match federal agencies. We're tracking your location. Tactical teams are en route to your position. They'll be too late." Sterling demonstrated that they can neutralize federal surveillance in real time. "Walsh, if something happens to me, the evidence is in the folder Sterling gave me. Use it to protect the children. Sarah, do not go to that warehouse. Change direction immediately and head to Extraction Point Charlie." But as I approached the next intersection, a convoy of black SUVs emerged from side streets, boxing in my vehicle with military precision. There was no escape route, no way to reach Extraction Point Charlie, no possibility of avoiding whatever Sterling had planned. I pulled into the warehouse parking lot and saw that I wasn't alone. Lily was there, standing next to a woman I didn't recognize, both of them surrounded by armed men who looked more like private military contractors than criminals. The trap was complete. Sterling had used our meeting as a distraction while her people eliminated our federal protection and captured my daughter. I climbed out of my car with Sterling's folder in hand, knowing that whatever happened next would determine whether the network was finally destroyed or whether it would continue operating with improved security protocols designed by me. "Ms. Chen, I'm sorry it came to this," Sterling called as I approached. "But you've forced our hand by refusing to cooperate voluntarily." Lily looked terrified, but unharmed. The woman standing beside her, tall, blonde, wearing expensive clothes, was speaking to her in reassuring tones that made my skin crawl. "Let her go," I called back. "You have me. That was the point, wasn't it?" "Actually, the point is ensuring your cooperation in redesigning our security infrastructure. Your daughter is insurance that you'll be properly motivated." I was 20 feet away when I heard the distinctive sound of helicopters approaching from multiple directions. Federal tactical teams were finally responding, but Sterling's people were already moving to secure defensive positions. What followed was the longest 10 minutes of my life. Federal agents surrounded the warehouse while Sterling's contractors prepared for a siege. Lily was moved to what appeared to be an armored vehicle, while I was dragged into the warehouse to serve as both hostage and human shield. "Director Walsh," Sterling spoke into a radio, apparently having direct communication with federal command. "Your operation has failed. We have Dr. Chen and her daughter. I suggest we discuss terms for their release." Through the warehouse windows, I could see federal snipers taking positions on surrounding buildings. But I could also see that Sterling's people had prepared for exactly this scenario. They had weapons, body armor, and tactical equipment that suggested they'd been planning this confrontation for months. "What do you want?" Walsh's voice came through Sterling's radio. "Safe passage to international waters for my team. Dr. Chen's cooperation in a consulting project that will benefit our mutual interests, and a guarantee that your investigation into our educational partnerships will be discontinued." "You know, I can't authorize that. Then you'll be responsible for what happens to a mother and daughter whose only crime was exposing people who deserved to be exposed." As the standoff continued, I realized that Sterling had made one critical miscalculation. She assumed that I was valuable only for my technical expertise, that my cooperation could be ensured through threats to Lily's safety. She had no idea that I'd spent months learning tactical procedures from federal agents that I'd memorized, the layout of this warehouse from satellite imagery during our planning sessions, or that the folder she'd given me contained more than just evidence of her operations. Hidden in the folder's spine was a small device that Director Walsh's technical team had designed specifically for this scenario. When activated, it would broadcast the exact GPS coordinates of every child being held at the facilities Sterling had shown me, along with real-time communication intercepts from her network. The device would also trigger a coordinated raid on all known network facilities simultaneously, ensuring that even if Sterling escaped, her organization would be completely dismantled. All I had to do was activate it and survive long enough for the raids to succeed. I pretended to stumble while being moved deeper into the warehouse, using the motion to trigger the device. Within seconds, I could hear increased radio chatter from Sterling's team as federal agencies across multiple states began moving against their facilities. "What did you do?" Sterling demanded, grabbing the radio from one of her operatives. "I did what any mother would do," I replied. "I protected my daughter and every other child you've threatened." The realization that her entire network was being simultaneously dismantled made Sterling desperate enough to take risks. She ordered her team to prepare for immediate extraction, abandoning their defensive positions in favor of reaching the armored vehicle where Lily was being held. That movement gave federal snipers the opportunity they'd been waiting for. The firefight that followed lasted less than 3 minutes, but it felt like hours. When the smoke cleared, Sterling and 4 of her operatives were dead. 3 others were wounded and in custody, and the woman who had been guarding Lily was surrendering with her hands raised. Lily ran to me across the warehouse floor, tears streaming down her face but otherwise unharmed. As I held her, Director Walsh approached with an expression of profound relief mixed with exhaustion. "It's over," he said simply. "All of it. The raids were successful. We recovered 47 children from the 3 facilities and arrested 18 more operatives. The network is completely destroyed." 6 months later, I stood in the kitchen of our new home in Asheville, North Carolina, watching Lily help. Her friend Emma baked cookies for their 3rd-grade class party. She was laughing, carefree, completely absorbed in the simple joy of childhood activities. The trials had been concluded with multiple life sentences for the surviving network members. The children who had been rescued were receiving therapy and care designed to help them heal from their experiences. Mrs. Henderson had been honored at a White House ceremony recognizing civilians who risked everything to protect children. Consulting business was thriving again, but now I specialized in legitimate security work for schools and community organizations. The skills that had once inadvertently enabled trafficking operations were now being used to prevent them. Most importantly, Lily was safe. Not just physically safe, but emotionally secure in ways that allowed her to trust the world again. She still occasionally had nightmares, but they were becoming less frequent as time passed. My phone buzzed with a text from Director Walsh. "Another network suspected in Miami. Could use your expertise if you're interested." I looked at Lily, covered in flour and giggling with her friend, and realized that I no longer needed to choose between protecting my daughter and protecting other children. We had built a life where I could do both. I texted back, "Send me the details. We're ready." Because sometimes the most important lesson a mother can teach her child is that when bad people threaten good children, good people fight back. And sometimes, when you fight back hard enough and smart enough, you can ensure that no teacher will ever again have to whisper, "Your daughter isn't safe here." The story that had begun with a warning whispered in a school hallway had ended with the complete destruction of a network that had threatened thousands of children. Mrs. Henderson's courage had saved not just Lily, but every child who would now grow up in a world where these particular monsters could never hurt them again. And in our kitchen in Asheville, as Lily laughed and baked cookies and planned sleepovers with her friend, that felt like the most important victory of all. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.